Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tether Radio podcast, the only podcast keeping you from spinning out into the infinite abyss. My name's Daniel, and I'm joined by my brother and co-host, Joseph.
Yo, what's up? How's it going? How you doing, brother?
Dude, I am doing fantastical.
Did you say fantastical or fantastico?
Co.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Sorry.
Cool. Because they have different meanings.
Yeah, I want to get a because they have different meanings.
I mean, yeah, because if you're doing fantasticals, like it means something quite different in South Asia.
in South Asia, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You know what? I'm glad I'm using it in the Southeast United States and not South Asia. So
that's exactly right. So okay, so we, our process is the following. We will, hear about articles, research articles, or whatever throughout the week. We'll give each other a call. We put together a little show agenda. We line it up, right? We do some work, obviously, to make sure that the show flows.
Mm-hmm.
But this morning, literally 5 minutes before we stepped onto the call, you found something that is a damn jewel. I mean, this is something that I'm pumping you. This is bad radio, but I'm pumping my fist. Like, the people must know.
Yes.
So tune us in, dude. What is going on? What's going on with this treasure?
So let me just paint a scenario. How about that? So you had a long you had a
long meal.
Go ahead. You went hard Saturday night, okay? And so your gut is full of taco bar, tequila,
right.
a mixed bag of beers, maybe even had
You probably even had a fourth meal.
Yeah, exactly. So you might have had some, you might have gone south of the border and gotten some Taco Bell down that gullet.
Right, and that chalupa, it's only been sitting there about 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, your body has done.
You probably didn't chew it up very well.
Yeah. Your body's done a number on trying to digest that, and you've noticed that you have a higher than normal level of flatulence. Okay. Boy, howdy, do I have a product for you. What if I was to tell you that there is a flatulence filtering underwear known as Shreddies on the market? Yes,
so I would have actually made your story, the crescendo of your story would have been like night of partying, fourth meal, chalupa that's floating around in chunks inside you. And then your in-laws are in town. Mm. And your mother-in-law has to go to the flea market all day. Oh, man. Okay, so Daniel sends this link, myshreddies.com.
Mm-hmm.
And as Daniel said, boy howdy, does he have a solution for you. These Shreddies are underwear that you can just indiscriminately fart in. And they filter your farts.
Yeah. No, but the best part is they didn't draw the line at just underwear.
No.
So, dude, if you are going to rock the shit out of some undergarments, you can go that second level and you can pick up some My Shreddies jeans to get that second layer of filtering.
I feel like you've got a fucking medical condition if you are farting.
Oh
so
God,
much
sorry.
Where you not only need the fucking Shreddies underwear, but you also need the outerwear.
Oh,
God. Like they sell Shreddies pajamas. Oh my God. There's a total line of shreddies.
Yeah.
They also sell shreddies, sell shreddies in white, which I think is ill-advised.
But so we need to we probably need to go ahead and start rapping on this.
Yeah, we got okay.
But
just,
if you
so
do decide,
go to my shreddies and click through their banner.
Click through their banner, and if you decide to spring on some stuff, use the offer code FartPants10 for an additional 10% off your order. I kid you not.
And it is that's FartPants10, myshreddies.com. My Shreddies does not sponsor our show
at all.
But if you work for My Shreddies, give us a buzz.
I'm going to take these fart filtering underwear for a spin. Sorry.
Oh my god. Just real quickly. They work with activated carbon. It sounds fancy as shit. But as you peruse their website, there is a section, and we'll wrap with this. Getting the best out of your shreddies. Shreddies are not magic. They work for a reason. If flatulence passes through the carbon filter, all odor will be removed. How you stand or sit and how you pass flatulence all need consideration.
So if you're one cheek sneaking
most of your shreddies, ensure there are no gaps around the waistband or leg openings, and the fit is taut against the skin. Body positions are not important when wearing other flatulence. Filtering jeans or...
Oh my god, dude.
I shit you not, it has photo, like pictures, sketches on how to stand and fart and sit and fart to get the most out of your shreddies. I mean, what the fuck? Okay, let's move on.
All right. Anyway, so God, dude, I gotta like gather my thoughts after that one.
So some people may not care at all because they might just not wear clothes, right? Like they may just be living that free lifestyle. And it sounds like entry number 1 on the punch list this week is a man of that ilk, right? So tell us about this. This dude who, gets his stretch on in the buff.
Gotcha. All right. So I pulled this article from the Independent, it's some UK publication kind of thing. The title of it was "Man Arrested After Doing Naked Yoga at Planet Fitness." So this cat shows up to Planet Fitness, and his name's Eric Stagno, a 34-year-old dude from Massachusetts, and he would resemble, in my opinion, Joseph, are you familiar with Jason Mantzoukas?
No, let me look him up.
Okay, you look him up. But he looks like a hairier version of Jason Mantzoukas. But anyway, so
wow, spot on.
Right? Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. Jason Mantzoukas. Huh?
Yeah. But anyway, so the this dude, I honestly, I'm just going to quote some of the stuff from the article because I think it's actually written pretty comically. So this dude was reportedly walking around naked in a Playstyle New Hampshire gym before contorting himself into yoga poses in front of a mirrored wall. So the police were called, and he was arrested. But before they were able to get him out, he pointed out to the police that he thought the gym was a, quote, judgment-free zone. So they also interviewed some other people that were working out while he was there, and they were quoted as saying that the gym members felt disgusted, sick, and unsafe. And so I mean, like, okay, let's just say, I think that this dude was just trying to make a point or something, right? I mean, like,
I don't know. After seeing his photo, man,
you think he's crazy?
He just might be crazy. Yeah. But I mean, it would be very funny for somebody to be like, you can see they have pictures inside the gym, and it says judgment free zone, no critics. So
yeah.
So I'm sure, man, he was like, he was letting the wang dang, and
Yeah.
that that was his thought, right?
Yeah. But it was funny because they cite, in Planet Fitness rules and regulations, it states suitable and appropriate exercise clothing must be worn at all times while exercising in a club. So, I mean, this dude, I just thought that this was awesome because he decided to point out to the police that it was a judgment-free zone. And I guess he felt that he was being arrested because I guess he was being judged.
Well,
because
and
because of his naked body. So.
And so, right, I think they had to make it clear to him that no, it's not because you're too fat or too hairy. It's because you're fucking naked.
Yeah.
Exactly. But his picture, I really hope this mugshot is from him getting arrested for naked yoga. Because in this picture, which of course these will be posted in show notes.
Yeah.
But in his picture, he just looks like he's thinking like, this is fucking bullshit. You know? Like,
yeah. Just
look at that
total
picture.
Inconvenience.
Total inconvenience. Yeah, he was like, I do naked yoga every fucking day. I thought I was entering the judgment-free zone, and pow, right in the kisser.
Yeah, but then the other thing that I thought was really funny about this article was the fact that they after the article concludes, well, I guess it's actually like mid article, they give you 13 nude yoga poses to try out. So
Right.
It was just one of those. Okay, well, they're not gonna. Independent doesn't want to pick sides on the naked yoga issue.
Good for them.
Yeah,
right. That's the journalism we need.
Yeah, but
that is the journalism we need.
But then he actually got a little bit of support. Mr. Stagno got a little support via Twitter with a guy defending him, saying, I mean, man does have a point. I go to Planet Fitness and it says right up on the wall in big bright letters, under which I can only assume he was doing his naked yoga.
Oh man,
it's pretty awesome.
So Daniel,
yeah,
do you have a cat?
I do not. I don't have any animals actually.
And how do you feel about cats?
I am kind of indifferent. I have my wife and I both have kind of mild allergies to like cat dander, I think. So, go ahead.
Have you ever owned a cat?
I don't think so. I mean, like even growing up, our folks were more dog people. So,
well, you forget my folks are your folks.
That's why I said our folks.
Okay, all right. I thought you were gonna drop the old.
Mom and Dad love me more.
You should call Mom and Dad. You know how you have a big nose and you tan easily? You should call Mom and Dad. You were adopted. So those are actually two facts about me, by the way.
But anyway, so cats, dude.
Cats. Okay. Okay, so I did have a cat. I don't know. Do you remember this? But I didn't have it for very long.
In Long Beach? Sure.
No, man, no. This is when Daniel and I will get into this at some point.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Later down the line, but we grew up on a cattle farm in East Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. It was a farm. Granddad raised cattle. Like that's what was going on there. Mm-hmm. And so when we moved out there were all these feral cats, and so we got to pick one that we wanted to keep. One of the kittens, because the ASPCA had to come out. I mean, there were like hundreds of feral cats out there.
It was.
Yeah. And I got a cat. I don't know why I'm telling the story, but I'll end it quickly here. I got a cat, and there was this like wild ass like what are the dogs that Saint Bernard? I was gonna say the dogs that save people in the snow.
Yeah.
There's a wild ass Saint Bernard that was like huge and like hadn't had a collar on for like 6 years, he's just like, he was a wild man.
Yeah.
And he ate my cat, my kitten.
Yeah.
Bozo was this dog's name. Bozo, yeah. And Bozo ate my damn kitten, and that was the only the cat I ever had. Anyway. So, whatever.
So we were exposed to cats.
We were exposed to cats, but our cousins had a cat, whatever.
Yeah.
So, there is a parasite in cat poop. Called toxoplasmosis.
Well, it's Toxoplasma gondii.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Toxoplasmosis is the actual disease state.
Is the actual disease state. Right. And this parasite, say it again.
It's Toxoplasma gondii.
Toxoplasma gondii, which, by the way, Daniel studied microbiology, so he's actually maybe the one that should.
I've heard of this. I'll just whatever. I'll chime in if need be.
when I'm pronouncing this like a
like the back hills hick you are.
like the slack jaw yokel you are. You know, why don't you lay off that shine, dummy?
Oh God, my hookworm's acting up again. I'm getting real tired.
I'm feeling lazy today, boys. So this Toxoplasma gondii is a parasite that's found in the gut of cats. And so this shit is really, really, pardon the pun, is really interesting because it is found in many, many places, you know, throughout, you know, the biosphere. But it has a unbelievably interesting effect on mice, right? Mm-hmm. And there is, for any Joe Rogan fans out there, there's a really great podcast that Joe Rogan did with, or podcast episode that Joe Rogan did with Robert Sapolsky. I'm a huge Robert Sapolsky fan. You remember that this guy wrote, he had, like, his books are like, Why Zebras Have Stripes, like, A Primate's Memoirs. The guy's amazing, but he's a really known, well-known biologist, world-renowned biologist. Mm-hmm. And so they get into this. But anyway, Toxoplasma gondii has this really interesting effect on mice, where when mice are exposed to it, it actually changes the way that they react to cat urine and to like stimuli from cats. Mm-hmm. So they get into this a little bit in the podcast. If you have a bunch of mice or rats or whatever, they're exposed to this and have a lot of this Toxoplasma gondii in their system. Well, I guess, and maybe officially at that point have toxoplasmosis. What's the way to phrase that, Daniel?
So, I mean, I believe toxoplasmosis is literally just saying that you are infected with Toxoplasma gondii. So, okay. I mean, yeah, that's right. So,
okay. So if these rats and mice have toxoplasmosis, then they are not afraid of for example, cat urine, which is completely different if these mice do not have toxoplasmosis, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as a matter of fact, not only are they not afraid of it, but it triggers a kind of pathway to light up in their brain, as Robert Sapolsky puts it. Or I'm paraphrasing, but that is very similar to like a sexual stimulus, right? Mm-hmm. And so these rats and mice are less afraid of cats, and so because they're less afraid of cats, the cats eat them, and thus the Toxoplasma gondii completes its life cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the thing that I think is most fascinating about this. Is that, and we'll post links in the show notes, but definitely take a look at this because, the thing I think that I find most fascinating is that there really is, a very interesting concept that starts to emerge once you dig into this where, you know, bacteria, be they gut bacteria that are, you know, that originate from one, you know, an animal like a, you know, a feline or whatever, and then people are exposed to it. Or rats are then exposed to this microorganism or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a great argument that starts to emerge that these microorganisms are actually controlling a lot of the way that we behave. Mm-hmm. And they're doing this to kind of steer the completion of their life cycle, right? but it's just not clear because we don't understand, for example, the unbelievable number of things that exist even in our own guts, right?
Yeah.
And how that affects us. Like, do you remember a couple years ago, and I actually didn't stage this material, so we'll just have to kind of wing it. But a couple of years ago when they were discussing a certain type of gut bacteria that was connected to depression. Do you remember this?
I mean, dude, they've started connecting to answer your question. I actually don't remember that, but I know that there's been a lot of studies, especially recently, about your gut flora, and basically if they can do I'm pretty sure it's called a fecal transplant, that they basically take dookie from one person and somehow sanitize it to the point of where it's made into like and this is going to sound disgusting, but I think like something that consists of like almost like a milkshake kind of thing, and then we'll administer it to someone else to try to change their gut flora.
Wait, let's be clear. Hold on. They're funneling this milkshake of shit back into your ass, correct?
I'm not gonna lie. I really don't know how it's administered, but the way that I understand it is it's like feeding tube maybe kind of thing.
No,
I'm not 100% on that. So
no, we're gonna have to look this up.
Yeah, I'll look it up, but
you're not gonna be able to leave people dangling. So
no,
basically, they force feed other people's.
Well, my question to you would be, why would they even have to do anything to it if they were just putting it directly, up your butt? I'm telling you, I actually
really
asked
put
that.
Me on the spot on that one.
But anyway, so but they were studying about people that are predisposed to like weight gain and obesity and all that. They're studying their gut flora to see if it's different, from someone that might not be predisposed to weight gain and all that. But anyway, so coming back around to what you were talking about with the gut flora and depression, it vaguely sounds familiar, but I don't really remember enough to like comment.
And so there is an interesting idea that starts to emerge where you like reckless behavior in humans, right? Might be directly related to, in this case, toxoplasmosis. And so in some way, this reckless behavior that might end your life, might help these Plasma Gandhi complete their life cycle. So in this article, which we'll post, there's a quote here. Toxoplasmosis has been linked to a greater risk of car accidents, mental illness, neuroticism, drug abuse, and suicide. And so in the Joe Rogan podcast, Sapolsky is talking about doing autopsies on people in like the 50s and 60s or something like that, or maybe 60s and 70s. And they said that they would notice that there were a disproportionate number of people that died in motorcycle wrecks had a lot of this Toxoplasma Gandhi in their system, or were officially had toxoplasmosis.
Yeah.
So it's just that this kind of on an island is interesting, but what's really fascinating is the rabbit hole you can go down when you start kind of lifting the rocks up and looking underneath with things related to with the how did you put it, the flora in your gut or whatever,
just gut flora,
and how potentially a designer mix of gut flora might be beneficial, and we might be headed in that direction. I actually heard of a couple of startups in the past 4 or 5 years, tech startups that have been really leaning into that. And thinking about ways to like observe what's happening in the gut, and kind of understand really how it controls your life. It's a really interesting topic. What do you think, right? Do you think that, I think it's highly, highly probable that understand really the natural order very well.
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question, but I actually really quickly looked up the fecal transplant thing so that I can get to the bottom of that. So most commonly, it's they actually basically plant the donor's feces, I guess, during the withdrawal of during a colonoscopy. So that's one way, but they said that there is a less common administration method that is a nasoduodenal tube. So basically they would run, a feeding tube through your nose and administer it through there, like straight to your duodenum. So
then they just they all just stand around and chant go go go,
chug chug
chug chug. Oh, you chug the shit shake.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, but anyway, sorry. So you were asking.
It's just so foul.
Oh, it's really weird. But I mean,
so
dude,
is that was what Human Centipede was about?
Exactly. That was the development of fecal
transplant. Yeah, that's actually how the movie starts. He's like, wait, nasoduodenal tube. There's got to be a better way. So
your question or
my question is, do you think that's not is it possible? It's definitely possible. It's happening. Mm-hmm. But is it how deep do you think this goes? Like, do you think that a lot of human behavior could be, traced back to basically us just
specifically toxoplasmosis only?
Do the bacteria control it all? You know what I mean? Yeah. Or not bacteria, but do these microorganisms control it all? An example would be, some warlord being like, whatever, having a propensity to make really drastic calls that ends up killing a bunch of people, and all these dead bodies then somehow complete the life cycle. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it sounds absurd.
Haven't there been people in history that, and I know that's a terrible way to start a question. Hasn't this ever happened? But I feel like there were like leaders that had like mild rabies infections or something like that.
I don't know.
And I don't have anybody that I can reference, but I'll look into that because I'm almost positive that they have found in history they found that leaders were infected with either different like diseases or different parasites and stuff like that, and that's why they think that that was a big contributor as to why that leader basically did what he did or did what she did, kind of thing. So, I mean, dude, I think that's completely. I mean, it needs to be researched because I think that there's a very, very, very good possibility that maybe you can even avoid medications and stuff by doing something, like a whatever, like a fecal transplant, man, just to change how your body is digesting foods and stuff, and like what byproducts that the bacteria is giving off, and like stuff along those lines. I mean, I think that's totally it needs to be researched, I think that this is very early on in that field, I guess.
I'm taking a quick note here because I'll do a little bit of research here and throw this up on show notes because that would be really interesting to look at, like at your comment that you made about rabies, and we'll throw some other stuff in there to get people headed down the toxoplasmosis rabbit hole. But really, really interesting topic, and there were a couple.
Sorry, real quick. And the other thing about the article that we have posted was they were saying they studied a very small portion of people that it was like students and people attending like entrepreneurial seminars, and they think that people that want to become entrepreneurs have a higher chance of being infected with that because it's like, oh, well, their fear of failure is less than someone that doesn't have toxoplasmosis, kind of thing, which was kind of an interesting.
I love it, dude.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I love the idea. It's completely crazy.
But
completely
just wanted
crazy.
To mention that one.
Well, we'll get all that posted up there. So, So Daniel, I know that your absolute favorite musical artist was in the news a little bit earlier.
Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
No. I think that's the only song I know.
Yeah, exactly. So Demi Lovato, right? I mean, who doesn't love Demi Lovato? But so she was having a little bit of trouble here. Tell us about Demi Lovato.
Okay, so as I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, it was all over the news and stuff. But I believe about 4 days ago, Demi Lovato was found to have OD'd at her house, and at this point she's supposed to be awake and stable and all this stuff, but that was kind of the beginning of this somewhat deep dive in because basically her drugs of choice.
This didn't come out of left field either, by the way. Just quick note on Demi Lovato. She had this song Sober.
Oh,
which
yeah.
Came out
she was saying
June.
that, like, she was basically had, like, relapse kind of thing. Right?
That's right. And, I mean, dude, which, by the way, like, who doesn't like to party? It's just, come on, man. Come on, Demi. You gotta draw the line. All right. So then, anyway, you started looking at this. You got drunk. You started looking at
yeah, exactly.
All right. Go ahead.
No, so, there were a couple of things about the article that were kind of interesting to me because, her drug of choice or drugs of choice were supposedly cocaine and alcohol. She's a very young person. But then I noticed in the article that they were saying, oh, well, she had been administered Narcan, which is naloxone, and naloxone is an opioid antagonist. So basically, and that's what brought her back, supposedly. Well, that's not going to have any effect on booze, and it's not going to have any effect on cocaine, because those are totally different, like, receptors that we're dealing with in the body. And so, but then they've said time and time again, oh, it wasn't heroin. Well, if it wasn't heroin, then it had to be like some kind of opioid, kind of thing. But I just thought that was kind of weird. Just wanted to mention that because, I mean, they're still claiming that it wasn't heroin, but I don't know. But anyway, so I digress. So the reason that I wanted to pull this was because this came out very shortly after an NPR article that came out, and it said it was a spike in liver disease deaths among young adults fueled by alcohol. And I was like, man, it's kind of interesting that would come out. And then obviously this thing that, Demi Lovato struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction for years and stuff. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll pull the other one as a pop culture shout out, I guess. But I really wanted to focus on the NPR article because it was very interesting as to why they're thinking that it is on the rise. Uh-huh. And so they basically open up the article with this guy that he's doctor's talking to about this patient that was in his mid-30s that was like hardcore jaundice because his liver was failing. And basically the guy has a terrible prognosis because he can't give up booze and he's an alcoholic.
Wait, and who is this guy?
Well, his patient.
Okay.
Yeah. So the doctor is Dr. Elliot Tapper. And so he goes on to basically talk about how it's, they've noticed over the years that, there's a big rise in basically, alcohol-related, liver disease in the 25 to 34 demographic. And it's actually been close to a threefold rise over between the years of 1999 and 2016. So they also noticed that there was an increase in binge drinking rates among those that demographic also. And so they were like, oh, well, this is kind of weird. They're kind of correlated to an extent. Well, then they started actually looking into past, I guess, the science part of it, and looking at the economic part of it.
Okay.
And they kind of have come to the conclusion that there is a correlation between this rise in alcohol abuse among 25 to 34-year-olds during the time that we were in an economic recession. So they're thinking that basically, to quote this guy, this is actually Dr. Nihar Parikh, I guess.
Okay.
He noted that, it correlates with the global financial crisis. And he goes on to say, we hypothesize that there may be a loss of opportunity, and the psychological burden that comes with that may have driven some of those patients to abusive drinking, because it's, they're correlated. Is it causation? Obviously, we talked about this on a previous podcast. They don't have enough evidence to conclude that, but it's definitely correlated. And so I just I thought that was pretty interesting to just basically that it's like, oh, well, maybe it's not like, I mean, obviously it's decision making, I guess, but what are the causes of this? Because I feel like more often than not in the field of science, medicine, a lot of people are just treating the symptoms kind of thing. But I think that this is becoming enough of a problem, and that they're thinking that it will basically have a detrimental effect on the U.S. economy, because if you've got all these people that are in, quote, the prime of their life kind of thing, and they're all dealing with liver cirrhosis and fatty liver disease and all this other stuff, it's they're thinking that it would just be have a hell of a lot bigger effect than just whatever affecting that population kind of thing. So I don't know, man. I just thought that it was pretty interesting, and I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, just
yeah. I mean, I don't know. What year did you graduate undergrad?
Undergrad was 2011.
2011, and then you went straight into graduate school.
Correct.
Right. So I didn't. Right. I graduated in 2007. Mm-hmm. And is that right? 2007. Yeah, I graduated in 2007. Mm-hmm. And then I went straight into the workforce, and it was pretty fucked up, man. I mean, it's easy to
right during the housing shit.
Yeah, and it was actually, so 2008 was when everything took a complete header, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you could kind of tell that things were slowing in 2006 and 2007. Mm-hmm. And I just remember thinking I had typical college jobs or whatever. It was a bartender and server and worked on a river yacht. I was a first mate on a river yacht. Oh my God, I'm living in a comic book. So graduated, and it was pretty shitty. And a lot of people that I knew from high school, I ended up moving to California in 2008 for a gig. But a lot of people that I knew from high school, man, a lot of people moved back in with their folks. A lot of people just didn't take that next step, Well,
I mean, shit, dude, I had to move back in with our folks because literally my college fund was cut in half. So, I mean, I couldn't afford rent for the remainder of my undergrad. So
Right. Oh, shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a big deal, obviously, and affected a lot of people. But I think that the thing that with our generation, because I'm like, we're both millennials. I'm kind of on the ass end of that. I think like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. If I were 2 or 3 years older, I'd be out of the millennial generation. But I think that a lot of people, I mean, this was detrimental to a lot of careers. You know, the trajectory was just set lower. And I think it's interesting because what's kind of emerged is this, you know, general feeling that most people in our generation are much more into experiences than into, supposedly, you see this a lot. You see this written about a lot, but are much more into experiences than, you know, physical items, which is interesting because maybe they fucking had to be.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I could see it. I don't know. I don't know that that's, you know, that's the cause or whatever, but it would definitely make sense to me that our generation probably drinks more heavily than like let's say the generation after us. Yeah. You know, and then the folks that were before us, what would that be? It wouldn't be Generation X, would it?
No, I think that isn't there a generation, I think there's a Generation Y and then millennials. Or maybe Generation Y is.
Yeah, I see. I can never remember.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure. I think it would be X though. The big one before us.
Yeah. Well, and so here we go. We got baby boomers. We got Generation X. We got Generation Y, echo boomers, or millenniums, and then Generation Z. Wow. So Generation X is right before us. Yeah. And so it's anyway, I can see it. I get it. I completely, I think I agree with it. That could be a cause, but man, I don't know. I talk to a lot of my peers and, you know, it's just, I feel like people, and maybe this is just the stage of life that we're in, but people just get to, you know, their late 20s, early 30s and they start looking around and they're like, is this it? You know? And I think some people are able to continue to develop goals and things that motivate them enough to, you know, not be self-destructive. Yeah. And some folks are, but I think it's a really timely topic. The other thing that I think is really interesting and kind of my last note on this is that it does also seem that our generation, is more health conscious than definitely generations in the past. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of an interesting counter to this. Yeah. Because I mean, dude, you know, the explosion of exercise bike clubs and yoga and, you know, and you know, or maybe it's just that these things are being are being talked about on a scale that they haven't been talked about, you know, before, because we have social media that's like driving a lot of that. But, I think that's interesting because I think that, I do know a lot of peers that drink a lot. Yeah. But I also know a lot of peers that are fairly, you know, health conscious as well. So I don't know.
Yeah. And just, one last thing before we kind of cruise on from this. But they were just saying like, oh, how can we address this problem and, you know, try to, I guess, divert, you know, some, you know, basically make it more difficult for these people to abuse alcohol and stuff. And they were talking about like raising taxes. They raised tax on cigarettes and that's been shown to reduce smoking and, you know, stuff like that. They said that, apparently Scotland actually has, they recently set minimum prices for units of alcohol to deter binge drinking. So,
minimum prices for units of alcohol?
Yeah, so you can only charge like down to something kind of thing. Like it's like, okay, whatever, you know, instead of 2-for-1 beers at some pub or whatever, then, you know, you have to pay for every beer and you also, there's like not happy hour and you have to charge like at least like $5 or something like that. So it's like they
that's
can't.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And I mean, like, I get it. I don't know, man. I would think that this is a multifaceted problem. So, I think one, obviously there's no quick, easy fix for it or anything along those lines. But something else that was noted in this was they were saying that, like different disease states, that could affect liver-related problems. They were saying that there was a decrease in Hep C or hepatitis C, which is awesome. I mean, I know that they've had a shit ton of new medications that have been approved for, and they have like insane cure rates now for Hep C. But while that has gone down, obesity rates, which also are very rough on, that's also a disease state that would be very rough on your liver. That's gone up like substantially. Which I mean, all you have to do is look around, that obesity's gone up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I don't know, man. I think it's going to be something that we need to kind of keep an eye on and just like see what happens. See if some kind of like legislation comes through, or if they are going to do something with taxes, or if they're maybe going to launch some kind of like PSA program kind of thing. Sure,
but it's yeah. I mean, this is much more multifaceted than we have time for today.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see the reaction from public health officials.
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, if people want to drink,
Well, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, kind of.
They're gonna do what they're gonna do
to an extent. So.
Yep.
But anyway,
so with all this wear and tear on the bod, right? I sent you a video a little bit earlier that we slotted in right after this, and the idea is, how long could we live, right? Mm-hmm. It's the name of the video. How long could we live if, and you watch the video and it gets into, if we replaced, obviously, I guess let me level set with this. The body is like any other machine. Everything is interconnected. And so,
things wear out.
Things wear out, right. And everything is interconnected. So, oftentimes in your car, if the, for example, if the, let's say one of your belt pulleys becomes misaligned or whatever, and starts damaging the belt, if damaging a belt in your car, if you don't do anything about it, it's going to shred the belt, and the shredded belt might flick off and total your fan or whatever, right? Like these things have these kind of, domino effects and multiplying effects, even though it was something small that was kind of off in the machine to begin with. And the body's no different. And so, if your heart is working, less efficiently, then that obviously affects other aspects of your body and ultimately leads to people's demise. One organ, the failure of one organ, or the one organ working less efficiently or not like it's supposed to or whatever, can lead to these catastrophic effects. So the idea of this was, how long could we live if we replaced failing body parts, or failing organs rather, piecemeal style, right? Mm-hmm. You've got a bad heart, you replace the heart. You've got bad kidneys, you replace the kidneys or whatever. And the video, we'll post it. It's interesting. It talks about, goes pretty far down this path and talks about like the value of black market organs, and gets into 3D printing organs. I mean, this is kind of like one of these like knucklehead, like whatever, entertain yourself at your shitty job videos or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not academically minded, but it brought up a couple of interesting ideas that I wanted to point out. One of which was crazy to me. Was that in this video, and I didn't look up any supporting articles here. I'll have to take a look and see if I can find something for everybody out there. But it says that David Rockefeller, right, had 7 heart transplants and 2 kidney transplants.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then he ended up he made it to 101. Is that right?
Something like that. Something like that. And
101 years old.
So that is fascinating to me because another topic for another day. But good God, money does buy everything. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. 7 heart transplants. Like obviously there is no way that somebody from the rural Southeast probably gets 1.
Dude, how about somebody from like, I mean, this is like less than 1% population kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Or like less than 0.25% that would be able to like do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about literally millions upon millions of dollars, or adjusted for inflation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Millions and millions of dollars if you can even like get a compatible organ kind of thing.
Right. And so this guy got 7 hearts and 2 kidneys. And that's, I think that's so that was just a kind of aside of like, wow, that's kind of fucked up. But, the thing that, the point that this direction that this video got me thinking in, which I wanted to bring up, was this idea of aging as a disease, right? And as an ailment which could be theoretically cured. And so Daniel, you're a little bit closer to, say a little bit closer, you're a PharmD. But what do you think about that, right? Like this idea that through, gene therapy, through, let's say we live in a world where we can, 3D print hearts that work or whatever. Yeah. Is that the case that like a lot of the failures that lead to ultimately to death, if we just kept the machine running, if we maintained it a little bit better, that we could live for years and years? Is that, or theoretically forever?
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, I know that obviously anytime that you're dealing with like medications and stuff, normally the main thing that you're looking at is liver function, kidney function kind of thing. Because, I mean, those are going to be the 2 main organs that are filtering the majority of medications and stuff.
Right.
So, but then, okay, so they're filtering, if you know that they're filtering medications and stuff out of your system, they're also filtering any other toxins and stuff that would get in your body. And which is, I mean, that's their main function. And so, I mean, dude, hypothetically, I mean, it makes sense. 'Cause, I mean, you can get joints replaced. You can get, you can get, basically they just haven't, they haven't been able to do like head transplants. Pretty much everything else is a go.
And there supposedly is a Russian doctor that's trying.
I heard about that.
Yeah. That's trying to, pull this off.
Yeah.
It says head transplant delayed for 2018. The first human head. Well, the website is firsthumanheadtransplant.com.
Yeah.
Check it out for yourself.
It sounds credible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They've got high quality ads on here.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean, theoretically, yeah. I mean, like, I would think that, my thing is that doesn't get me excited for life extensions per se, like, or in regards to like people that are older, that their stuff is just legitimately wearing out.
Right. Right.
What it gets me stoked for is like kids that are that have congenital heart defects and like eye transplants for kids that are born blind and just, I know that I'm simplifying this stuff to a degree, but But I mean, that's the stuff that I'm like, man, you know, being able to grow organs or like 3D biometrically print organs, like that's some pretty cool shit, man. Or like they, you know, in that video that you had sent, and I had actually I remember seeing something when I was going through pharmacy school, that they were talking about implanting bacteria on basically chips and being able to put that implant that under someone's skin, and so the bacteria would be exposed to your blood and be able to read your blood sugar levels. And then they had also spliced genes in the bacteria so that when it got to a certain threshold, then it would actually start producing insulin, kind of thing. So instead of having, so
we gotta find this to post this.
Yeah. No, I know I should have looked this up, but like, I mean, I'm not saying that this is in the pipeline for like 2019 or anything, but that's what they're looking at doing, kind of thing. So that it's like, okay, you know, your pancreas is jacked, you know, you've got type 2 diabetes, your body's not responding to insulin, whatever, you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this like outpatient surgery to implant this thing, and you don't have to mess with an insulin pump. You don't have to do like, I'm sure you'd probably still have to do testing just to make sure that that it's functioning properly. But like, I mean, dude, that would completely turn around the world of diabetes, like to the nth degree, man. I mean, just being able to implant some small chip with bacteria that is basically going to function as your pancreas. Right. I mean, that's like the coolest shit I've ever heard of. But
right. Well, but I mean, we'll post a couple articles here, but I mean, I think that's really the interesting thing here. You know, that I kind of the big takeaway from this little cheesy ass video. But aging as a disease that we can address. Now, here's a philosophic question that I'll pose it just because I was chatting about this with somebody a couple weeks ago, but I don't think we should get into it because I don't think we have time. But here's the idea. If we start to cure aging, right, and people start living for 200 years, 400 years, 1,000, whatever it is, whatever absurd number, you know, we're able to extend life to, I tend to think, will that affect how productive people are and the level of innovation in the human population, right?
Yeah, just because you're guaranteed like a certain amount, kind of thing. Well,
here is where I will kind of leave that dangler, right? Because I think that whether we know it or not, humans are constantly doing this kind of calculation that takes into account the fact that we don't live for a very long time. Yeah. And so a lot of like, it's pretty wild that people in, you know, and hell, even before, you know, people were living to 70 or 80, which they are now, into their 90s. Before that, the amount of innovation, the level of innovation that was happening, you know, when people were living to like 40, 50, 60, you know, and you've got like these titans that were building just massive companies that were hacking out infrastructure projects and all that stuff. And it's like, it seems as though kind of that acknowledging the Reaper and that this shit is, you know, comes very quickly. It seems like that is something that people, you know, knowing consciously or subconsciously kind of acknowledge and makes them work very quickly. So if you like knew you had 2,000 years, would innovation slow down?
Death is a hell of a motivator, right?
Hell of a motivator, dude. Hell of a motivator, especially when a lot of people are all about that legacy. Yeah. So moving on here, shadow banning, right?
Yes.
And so this is this a video game? Is this a spy name? What's going on here?
So shadow banning is like the latest.
Why is it in the news?
Okay, I pulled this article from TechCrunch, and it's titled "Twitter Shadow Banning is Trump's Latest Social Media Cause." So I had never even heard of shadow banning, and then let's see, about around July 26th, it started surfacing that Twitter was potentially shadow banning Republicans on their platform. And so by shadow banning, they meant or it's defined as basically making a user's content that they tweet out and that stuff, making it invisible to the public, but it shows up to the user that is posting it. And so it's that. So they're not actually banning somebody. So it's like they can still have access to their Twitter and all that jazz. But in addition to that, they were talking about, or I guess they weren't saying that it was to that extent. They were saying that it was just basically headed in that direction for Republican politicians, basically. That when you are on Twitter and you start to search for someone in the search bar, it'll have like autofill stuff that comes up below that it's basically trying to guess what you're typing in.
And all of that is controlled by an algorithm on the back end.
Yes, exactly. And so what people were noticing was, and I believe the original story was actually Vice News, which I'll flip over and kind of cover that a little bit too. But what Vice found was that when you try to start typing in Republican politicians' names, some of them, it would not auto-populate, which is kind of strange because that was not the case for literally, I believe what they said was basically any kind of Democratic politician. It would, it'd be like the first thing because, like you said, it's an algorithm, so it's probably going to work on popularity. Well, if it's popular, then that's probably going to want to be, or that will most likely be one of the top results. And so, and I'm not saying results, sorry, as in like you've submitted a search. It's like and I can't remember exactly what is it called when like you're typing into Google. It's not autocomplete. Maybe it is autocomplete.
Yeah, it's autocomplete. Yeah.
But anyway, when it's auto-completing these things and guessing what you want. Well, so people were very upset about that, and because they're saying, oh well, that's Twitter taking it upon themselves to curate to potentially somebody else's agenda, the search results, that kind of thing.
Well, somebody else's agenda, maybe their agenda,
Maybe, wait, are you talking about maybe Twitter's agenda?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh no. And I guess that's what I was attempting to say. But so people might see this as not that big of a deal, but then obviously you're looking at the most outreach that you can possibly get as a politician. So you want to show up on any kind of search possible. Well, yeah, so it's one of these things that people were like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's illegal. It's discriminatory. It's all this jazz. And so then it surfaced that Twitter basically said, oh well, it's a bug. It's a bug in our whatever algorithm or whatever along those lines, kind of thing. But everybody was kind of like, okay, so it's a bug, but it only affected one political party, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of weird. And then something else, this all surfaced after Twitter had put out this blog post in mid-May that they were saying that they were trying to put out a new approach to facilitate healthy public conversation on Twitter. And so in the blog post, they're basically saying, oh yeah, we want to look at the behavior of, quote, trolls. And they're like, if it's considered fun, good, and humorous, then, we don't want to affect that. But then if it's found to be, basically, if it's found to distort the conversation, to quote the blog post, then they're like, okay, well, we're going to basically start curating this stuff. So I read that as basically they're going to make the decision as to whether or not, they are deciding what is contributing to a healthy conversation versus what isn't.
Right.
Right. And then, lo and behold, whatever, like basically a month and a half later, this stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know if it's related. I don't know if it's, if it's just coincidental. I don't, but I don't think that it's, in my opinion, they're trying to get like whatever healthy conversation out there. And I mean, like, I guess I'm the way that I see this is Twitter trying to create a safe space kind of thing. And I don't think that Twitter, in my opinion, if you really want to be, this place for healthy conversation, I think that there can be arguments that are healthy conversation kind of thing,
Yeah,
or a healthy argument.
And Twitter is not a public utility.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's the other side of it, right? Twitter's not a public utility. If the shareholders of Twitter and leadership of Twitter want to do these things, they can, but it may negatively impact the business. As far as like these guys, embodying their mission statement, it seems a little absurd. I don't fully understand that because, I mean, dude, the thing that people have got to keep in mind, no matter your flavor of politic, right? If you love, and I will just use it as an example because it is, this is the number one topic of conversation in most, when politics come up in 2018, whether you love or hate Donald Trump, think past this, right? Like, there were times when things, in history, now through this revisionist lens, that was like the right side to be, right? The right side of history to be on, and they were unpopular at the time, and vice versa, right? Yeah. Things that were very popular and that weren't good or whatever. And so my point is that if you're into this idea of like public discourse and you're into this idea of putting together, using technology to kind of amplify in many ways, but just at a base level, amplify public discourse, I don't know that, it's just a slippery slope to start shadow banning, not even shadow banning, but banning almost anything. I mean, I understand why things that are hyper offensive, some people want to ban these and keep these from their children, and I completely get that. But I just think that it's a slippery slope to start saying, okay, well, now we're going to say, like, if your political affiliation is of a certain bent, like, we're just not gonna, this isn't a place for you. I just think that it's not healthy discourse or dialogue. The other thing that I think is really interesting, how the shit do you think that you're going to be able to implement something like this and people aren't going to immediately see it? That's what's not exactly clear to me, because I find it really hard to believe that even, making that kind of internal policy call like this, I find it really hard to believe that nobody thought that through. Yeah. And then I don't really see a way that it could be viewed positively. I mean, if somebody's engaging one of these, a social media platform, for like bona fide hate speech, got it. And when I say bona fide hate speech, I mean, there's some gray area or whatever. But if you're using the N-word and like posting pictures of like you and your buddies and like, in sheets at night, I mean, fuck you, right? Like, come on, that's absurd.
Well, it's not contributing anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not, I mean, it's basically just, oh my God, what is the word? Not exceptional. What is oh my God, sensationalism.
Sensationalism. Kind of yeah, I completely agree. And here's the other thing. We gotta head on to the final lap here. Yeah. But here's the other thing. Everybody who is listening to this needs to remember this 100%. When you use a service like Twitter or Google or Facebook or pick one, right? You are not seeing, in the case of Google, you're not experiencing the internet. You're experiencing the internet that they want you to experience. When you are on Twitter, you are not experiencing raw discourse. You're experiencing the discourse that they're funneling to you to get you to do certain things, namely click on ads.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's really, really, really important because I find myself, and you and I talk a lot about technology, right? I work in technology. I find myself constantly kind of like hopping on Twitter and getting like warm fuzzies or whatever from like flicking through this infinite scroll. And then sometimes I'm just like, wait a second, they just fed me this this
curated experience.
Tasty shit steak.
Tasty shit steak.
This curated experience. Yeah. So it's really important to remember, man, like, research often and look at as many sources as possible. And, if you're starting to read a bunch of articles or have an experience, and you're like, wow, I agree with everything that I've seen, get worried, and do a little bit more research. So, let's take it into the home stretch here.
Okay.
So there's a name that I'd like to say. I'd like to just say this name.
A stream of consciousness. Just to
say this name out loud. And this man is fucking legend and is becoming more so. And so this guy really, he could not have existed in current form in even the 90s, right?
Yeah,
Maybe even the early aughts.
Yeah.
Who is Sam Barsky? What does he do? And how is he slowly building sweater by sweater his media empire?
Yeah. So I was on, funny enough, I was on Twitter and saw someone actually tweet about this guy, and I was like, holy shit, I need to check this out. And so Sam Barsky has an Instagram, and he is just to give, I don't know his backstory by any stretch, but he is basically considered to be an artistic knitter. And what this guy does is he will knit sweaters, and they're literally sweaters of different just like places that he's been, or different like architecture, or like I went through his Instagram and just pulled some of the different things that he has knit and put into sweaters. And like, for instance, he's got one that he's got a photo beside the Golden Gate Bridge, with literally a Golden Gate Bridge sweater that he made. And that's the other thing that's absolutely like crazy. Like, this dude is actually extremely talented. Like, these sweaters are, I mean, they look like they've kind of been put together pretty quickly, but
and they're short sleeved.
And like the neck's kind of wide, and
I mean, dude, this sweater, it looks like an artifact.
Yeah. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
So I've got some Barsky facts to drop on you.
Okay. Yeah, hit me.
Sam Barsky is an American artist and internet celebrity. He's known for knitting sweaters of iconic landmarks when taking selfies in front, then taking selfies in front of those landmarks while wearing them. He also knits sweaters of Jewish and other holidays. His sweaters are knitted without a pattern, freehanding them as he goes along. His sweaters have been recognized as art, having been displayed in numerous galleries and at the American Visionary Arts Museum. Though he gets lots of requests, Barsky does not sell his sweaters because he said it is impossible to, quote, be a human sweater mill.
Dude,
Barsky started knitting in 99 after he dropped out of nursing school. Dude, we should try to get him on the phone.
We might be able to. I don't know.
Oh, fuck yeah, we could get him on the phone. Yeah. Barsky would take the call any day.
If I knew Barsky.
He started in 99 after he dropped out of nursing school due to health issues. He at first tried to teach himself how to knit from a book he borrowed from the library soon after he met the owners of a local yarn shop who taught him. And he has done such landmarks as Golden Gate Bridge, Times Square, Stonehenge, an African safari, Dude, Western Wall.
He had one that was he was taking a selfie in front of a tank. And he's got a tank sweater on.
This one, he also did a sweater of the Dead Sea.
I mean, dude, I have actually knit before. Joseph, I think that do you know how to knit?
No.
Okay, well, Megan also, my wife, she knits also. Dude, to do these freehand without a pattern, like, that it really is like supremely impressive.
So people will see these pics, but so basically what he is like, he just has to know exactly when to introduce a certain color yarn and for how many knits, right?
I guess so, man.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so
Barsky,
yeah, it's
this man.
It's crazy.
Wait till you guys. And here's the thing: when I say the name Sam Barsky, there's a face that pops up in everyone's mind, and that face is exactly correct.
Yeah. No,
it is precisely correct. 10 out of 10 people, if you said, what is this man's name? They would black out and then blurt Sam Barsky. I mean, he is not a Sam Barsky. He is the Sam Barsky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God, man, that is just awesome.
And look, dude, he's like actually displaying this. I mean, it sounds like we're like making fun of him. We're not.
No, I'm telling you,
they're throwing a meet and greet for Sam Barsky. Wait a second. Shit, missed it. June 21st, Thursday, June 21st, and that was
no, but dude, this was also wasn't this last year? Oh no, you're right. Okay, no. Yeah, but he's got like Kickstarter campaigns to basically, I guess, help him go on trips and stuff, because like you said, he's not he's not gonna put these things out for sale, man. So
no,
which
dude,
I did see that like his comment section on his Instagram is just like inundated with people like requesting that he make them a sweater for money.
Dude, yeah, he's we'll post his latest Kickstarter campaign too, so you can track him on Kickstarter.
There you go.
You can track him on Kickstarter. So Sam Barsky, remember the name, the legend, and if he's there, go say hello. And in the meantime, we may try to get a little interview going with Sam Barsky. We'll see what we can do. Unfortunately, we don't have bona fide producers just yet, so I think it's going to be DV and I just working the phone lines. But anyway, all right. Well, we are wrapping up here. Want to thank everybody for joining us for yet another episode of the Tether Radio podcast. Want to remind everybody to come visit us at Tether Radio, TETHERRAD.IO, Tether Radio, on the interwebs. We have got content that we post up in our show notes category there. We'll be making a couple tweaks to the website here in a little bit. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we will go ahead and try to find us on there at Tether Radio. You can just put it in there, and unless we're shadow banned, I think we should pop up.
Yeah, right.
But want to thank everybody for listening to Tether Radio today. Daniel, as always, appreciate it. Yeah, man, everybody remember, stay tethered, my friends, and we will see you next week for another installation of Tether Radio.
Awesome, dude. Thank you guys for hanging out, man. Join us next week, and stay tethered.
Stay tethered, my friends.